looking crows though, aren't they, magpies?
Magpies are better looking crows.
No, aren't they?
They certainly have a certain something. A white bit, basically.
Blue? They got a blue bit?
Magpies don't have blue bits. Magpies are famously black and white.
Well, ours have. Are they not magpies then? They've got a blue bit. They've got a blue streak.
Hello and welcome to the Gerry and Scarlett show. We're just a couple from. I just saw you use that intro.
Thank you very much.
We're just a couple from Glasgow that wanted to have their own show with
talking
news,
about the
reviews, chats about magpies, and so we've decided to do it. Are you ready to go then? You okay?
No, sorry, I'm taking me by surprise
We're
here.
going to start off with a massive debate about what colour magpies are.
Our magpies seem to have a blue streak in the garden, and Gerry's now suggesting that they're not legit magpies because they have got a blue bit. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Maybe do a fact check or something on that.
Yeah,
later
we'll fact check what colour. I'm not fact checking what colour magpies are. Everyone knows what colour magpies are. There's one in the garden that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and he's black and white. But wait a minute, there was
Well, they're all black and white, Scarlett. This is not.
Yeah.
Open for a debate kind of thing. I mean, do you mean some have got like a little flash of
like
oily blue on it? Cool. Thanks for joining us this week on the Gerry and Scarlett show.
Nothing to do with magpies. So
what have we got? What are we reviewing this week?
So we are
magpie colour.
Yeah, so plan of action, we'll do the rabbit hole and then we'll do these reviews on this week's, which are the Boston Strangler.
Yeah. Which is on Disney Plus, but was on Hulu and it's still on Hulu.
And Nobody, the film.
Nobody.
No, not Nobody. Nobody.
We'll discuss that later on. We can't even agree on what
the film.
Let's call that, let alone the colour of magpies.
On Netflix. And Ted Lasso. We're going to do a mid-season rundown. No spoilers, but we are going to do a mid-season chat about how it's going so far. Because
series 3 of Ted Lasso, which has been good fun.
Yeah, we thought it might be a fun, being as it's a football show, we can do a mid-season rundown on the chain of events thus far without giving any of them away.
Because it's a football show. Or because football's half-time.
Season.
Oh, because it's mid-season.
Mid-season. And the whole...
Oh, but the football season's kind of ending. I don't know if it kind of doesn't...
God, all right. Well, from a non-football interesting perspective, I thought that worked.
That's good. No, it's good. Listen, magpies are black and white and football season is ending. And it is now time for the Scarlett rabbit hole. So every week, Scarlett tells us what they caught your eye on the internet. And where you started off and where you ended up with. And I'll try and figure out how you managed to get there. So what did you start with?
With a slight change in events this week was a bit of a weird rabbit hole because it's all to do with the same start point. So there's not really a kind of guessing because it doesn't go onto a different subject. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of the same thing that it started in.
Right, well that's genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, so where this started, does this name ring a bell? Nicholas Rossi? Or Nicholas Alaverdian?
Is it football?
You heard of
player?
that person? No, it's not. So this case.
So you're not going to tell me. So the whole premise of this is that you start with something and you end with it, and I guess how you get there.
But we're not going to do that. Okay. We're not guessing that today. Okay. We're just going to go into it.
It's just a whole.
And you can ask questions as we go because this story is like a documentary in itself.
Okay.
And you'll see why I'm really fascinated by it in a minute, because I think it'll pique your interest as well. Okay. So the first story that I clicked on where this rabbit hole started was man accused of faking his own death steams up glasses in rage as he denies being a US fugitive. Right.
He steams up his own glasses because he's so angry. Well, I do that when I play football and I come back because my body temperature is so ridiculous.
Yeah, hot.
Like I'm the person in the car when you're sitting there and there's maybe 4 of you getting a lift back or whatever, and just my corner of the car just looks like a Turkish harem.
But you're also the reason that we don't need an electric blanket in bed, so that's also
true.
A
we
bit
are
of a
saving
win.
money.
Yeah. So anyway, back to this man. Yeah. And so this story, I was like, that's a bit fascinating because it was in the British press as quite a big deal. Like it was a top line story in the British press. And to me, that sounds like an American story. Not of huge interest to us over here. However, on first reading of it, it was fascinating.
So hold on, your instinct was, this doesn't sound very interesting, but maybe it is.
Well, yeah, because it's a top line story in the British press. And I was why? Okay. So hang on, this man... Nicholas Alaverdian, or otherwise known as Nicholas Rossi, or otherwise known in Britain as Arthur Knight. So he's obviously got various, what do they call it? Aliases. I was going to say alliances, but that's not right. Aliases. So he allegedly faked his own death in 2020 and fled to Scotland. So this is where the story is getting quite interesting. So basically, he now insists that he's a British man called Arthur Knight. And he supposedly, in inverted
commas... Bit of a giveaway right at the start there. That I don't think... Oh no, Knight is a surname, isn't it?
Yeah, Knight with a K.
Yeah. Have you ever met someone with Knight as a surname?
No.
It does sound like a kind of name that someone who's making up their name would come up with.
No, well, he did marry...
Hello, my name is Arthur Knight.
No, but he married a woman whose surname was Knight and evidently took her name. So this is all part of the... I
think Nigel Farage sounds like a made-up name.
Like he's like a made-up character.
If you got pulled over by the police and you were drunk, they were like, and what's your name? And you didn't want to give them your real name, you'd be like... Nigel Farage.
Just a drunk Frenchman. Yeah. But anyway, so back to Arthur Knight / Nicholas Alaverdian or Nicholas Rossi, which is what we'll stick with because that's the easiest one to say.
Okay,
Nicholas Rossi.
Yeah.
Okay, so he supposedly died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with only his widow by his side, right? So that seems... At that point, everyone was sort of believing that he was dead. The US authorities think that he is Nicholas Rossi, who is wanted over allegations of rape and sexual assault.
Ooh, this isn't a nice story.
Oh no, it's not nice, but it's really fascinating. So
okay.
Stick with me. His death, in inverted commas, was announced after the FBI announced a fraud initiative against him. So they weren't even at the rape stage at this point.
Right.
Because he opened 22 bank cards.
I just made a mess up and put Ted Lasso on the screen just to ruin.
Oh God!
Everyone, sorry about that.
Just to really confuse everyone.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't look anything at all like Jason Sudeikis. You'll be delighted to know.
One of the nicest guys.
I know,
with
really.
Some of the most heinous crimes associated with.
Yeah.
Sorry for listening on the Spotify link, by the way. I'm just trying to edit the show as we go along, and it's going swimmingly well.
Oh.
Check it out on Patreon and YouTube if you want to see my fantastic editing skills.
Now shut up, or this rabbit hole is going to go on for an hour. So he tried to open 22 bank cards in his foster father's name. And someone cottoned on to the fact that this might not be him. So they launched a fraud initiative. He then decided that he was going to, we think, fake his own death. So Rhode Island had a warrant out for arrest for him as a sex offender at the same time. All very confusing. In October 2021, he was discovered on a ventilator in the QEU, Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow, which is just round the corner from us. It's like dying on one.
You say discovered on it. It sounded like he was just perched there or something. So right.
Stop it.
Right.
While undergoing treatment for COVID-19. So he was one of those people that was on a ventilator for COVID-19. And he was arrested on rape charges for an alleged rape in 2008 in Utah, plus other multiple crimes there and here by this point. Now at this point I was like, that's a long time ago. So we are talking 2021 is reasonably recent, but rape crimes in 2008. So why did they get him before he even got to Scotland? So it turns out, so that was the first rabbit hole. I was like, why did it take them so long? What was going on there? Mm-hmm. So in 2017, Utah investigators began processing a backlog of untested sexual assault kits. Right, so that's 2017.
Sorry, wheel back. They were testing what?
Right. So they began processing a backlog of untested sexual assault kits. So they had a load of sexual assault kits just lying about from 10 years prior. Exactly. Someone came in and went, what is that stack lying in the corner? Get that sorted.
I've been meaning to get through those. There's a backlog of them and they're all untested as well.
Cracked the whip and they finally got it down. And they found one of these Utah kits from 2008. This is 10 years later now, was matched to Nicholas Rossi's DNA. So they finally were able to, that was when they got the arrest warrant out for him anyway. There's loads of fascinating questions about this case. So then he, so when he faked his own death, they're not quite sure. There's a couple of years where they're not quite sure what went on. Mm-hmm. And then they think he then moved to Bristol in England. He flew into Dublin, then he got to Bristol in England, married the Knight woman, somebody Knight, and took on that name.
Beverly Knight.
I went from there.
Probably not Beverly.
But in 2021 he moved to Glasgow. He claimed to be a professor teaching at the University of Glasgow. He didn't actually teach, he was just claiming. Right. So nothing against the University of Glasgow there. Don't sue us. He used an English accent and dyed his hair blonde, as you do.
He has got no idea what a standard English person, Arthur Knight, and I am blonde.
We'll get into this later. There's some hilarious things, but in the Wikipedia, I thought this really made me laugh. there was a chat. Someone had asked the neighbour's opinion on him. Now, bear in mind, this is in Glasgow, and someone, I love, this is what they said, was, for someone who was on the run, he really liked to draw attention to himself.
All right, okay.
So that gives you a bit of a what?
What was he doing?
I don't know. I think it was just he was being eccentric. So he was wearing tweed suits, and he was dyed his hair bright blonde, and was just being an eccentric English professor or whatever. But yeah, he a fascinatingly awful man. His first wife only managed 6 months with him because he was a domestic abuser. Second wife he got by pretending to be a Mormon. And And his third
wife was made of bricks.
And his third wife is that English woman. The second wife, he met her at a singles ward for Mormons, and she lasted. So the first wife was 6 months, second wife 7 months. Became violent the day after the wedding. What a guy!
This is horrible.
It's really brutal.
I don't know why you're.
So there was lots of really interesting things, because he was like, "What about the body?" And the body. So bear in mind that until very recently, no one had actually proven whether this was this guy. He kept denying. So this whole time, this is all going on, no one's actually sure if this guy is dead or not, because there's a widow who's saying she saw him die,
right?
But no one has seen her.
Right.
She is completely covering, taking herself. She won't do any media. She won't talk. Occasionally, she crops up on the phone or in a recorded thing, but it's evidently.
Is it him doing the voice?
We think it's him doing the voice, and she doesn't exist. And he's doing this fake accent. And what was it described as? I think it was described as hyacinth bouquet. Like a hyacinth bouquet.
That? No, he's dead.
Odd.
My husband's dead.
Yeah, so a couple of things I was like, what about the body? Surely if there was a death, then maybe they can prove a body. There was never a death certificate.
Yeah.
The body was supposedly cremated, and the ashes were taken out to sea. Was there any family? I was like, does he have a mother? Like, what's going on there? We heard about the foster father, the poor guy who had $200,000 worth of debt on 22 credit cards that were opened up in his name.
Wow.
His biological mother apparently didn't believe he was dead and asked his foster mother to investigate. And so when she started reading through things, she read his obituary, which was supposedly evidence of his death, and she noticed how adulatory it was and became convinced it was his style of writing. We think he wrote his own obituary as well.
This is the biological mum who hadn't raised him.
No, this is the foster mum who knew him.
Knows him.
Yeah. So she's not on board either. But we think that she thinks that this is him as well. And I love this. There's all sorts of just mad things going on here, because on his Wikipedia as well, there is an added note, which I have never seen, an added note on Wikipedia that multiple Wikipedia accounts created by him,
oh my god,
have edited this webpage on him. So he's created other ones and tried to edit this one on himself, altering death dates and trying to change the picture.
Oh my god. Isn't that the funny thing about like master criminals in little bunny ears? That like wanting credit for what they've done is like the major downfall in it. Like writing your own obituary and just saying what a tremendously smashing chap you were. Like, it just got, and by the way, he was very good at sports and stuff like that. People are like, what's he talking about?
Was he sexy? Okay. So did he have a funeral? Okay, so there's lots of these things that you're like, and I just kept typing all these questions. I was like, I want to know all these details. So did he have a funeral? Several months after his death, a priest on Rhode Island was contacted and asked to do a funeral mass by his alleged widow. Shortly afterwards, the priest was called by the police, that's quite a difficult sentence to say,
well done,
who cancelled it and filled the priest in. The priest described the widow's voice as sounding like Hyacinth Bouquet. And
he's only got one character.
With a high-pitched English accent. And police say it was Nicholas Alaverdian using a voice disguiser. So there's lots of really, really fascinating little twists in this story. It's nuts.
How's he getting away with any of it though? Doesn't sound like he's doing it that well.
No, well, this is all sort of when he was still kind of on the loose as well, which is fascinating. But how did they identify him in Glasgow? Tattoos. So they had obviously put out pictures of these tattoos that he had, which were very particular. One of them had a big scar on it where he'd obviously tried to remove it. Like, it's like stuff on a movie. It's fascinating. So where is he now? Big question. So he was living in a flat in the West End of Glasgow.
You're kidding? When was that? What year?
That was before his arrest. So
When did he get arrested in 2017?
No, 2021.
Oh my
He was
God.
on the ventilator. They still released him on bail multiple times, even though he kept not returning.
I just want to see what he gets up to. It's like a right
I
laugh.
mean,
What's he going to do next?
But now, like I think as of January this year, like this has been ongoing until very recently. He's been in and out of custody. But mostly in Edinburgh. So there's been multiple false starts to his trial due to him falling sick, in inverted commas, multiple times the day before the trial is due to start. And eventually the judges just got fed up.
He's probably
and
the
I
kind of
think
guy that would come to trial dressed as the judge. He'd be like, am I
Probably.
judging you? Are you judging me?
Well, he just couldn't believe
this is all
anything
too
he
confusing. Let's
said.
forget it.
Yeah, he just couldn't believe anything he was saying. It's mad. So January 23, where are we at? He claimed, this was slightly hilarious as well, claimed he was being taunted by remand prisoners in Edinburgh singing John Denver's Leaving on a Jet plane to him very regularly.
And why was
Which
that
is
taunting
like,
him?
I know, it's such a rubbish taunt as well, isn't it?
Because
Because he's American and they're trying to extradite him.
oh right,
And
okay.
they keep not being able to.
Right.
Yeah, but like to me, that's a bit more of a jibe at the British government
I mean,
at the judicial system. But
Just don't be a nasty.
anyway, he's very annoyed
criminal.
by it. So he's in Sawton prison in Edinburgh. Yeah, it's quite funny. So they I mean, it's, to me, from all the stuff that I have read, which is a lot over the last couple of days, it seems pretty cut and dry that he is this guy, and his fingertips, his fingerprints all match, his tattoos all match, and yeah, it's very fascinating. So that was the rabbit hole that I fell down, which is, you can see why I didn't ask you to find the end of it, because
No, I mean,
it's just a crazy story.
I don't really know what to do with what you've put in my head there, to be honest with you. But like, it's not even that far enough. Like, the guy lives in the area as well,
Yeah.
so I'm actually a little bit terrified now.
I know, I was really worried, and
Yeah.
especially because it's actually very close to where we live, and that's actually why I kept digging in this as well, because there was lots of local stories and
Oh my
pictures
God.
of like his wife, and they were all like not that far from here, and like I don't know.
Please let us know if the rabbit hole section, if you're enjoying it or if you're terrified by it. 'Cause if you're scared, there is help that you can get, because that's a contemporary story that's still ongoing and in the area that we live in.
No, he's in the jail now. So
Oh my gosh. Anyway, thanks for joining us on the show. No, we've got other reviews.
yes,
too, haven't we?
reviews. Oh my goodness, and we're starting with the Boston Strangler.
Yeah, I know, we've gone a wee bit dark and
Crime. This is basically the true crime episode, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
Boston Strangler, let's do a synopsis. Okay, so reporter Loretta McLaughlin, or as they call it in the film, McLaughlin, becomes
I had the synopsis for this.
okay.
It's
do
only
it.
synopsis I've
Go on
got.
then,
Is
you
that
do it.
okay?
Yeah,
Can
that's fine,
Can I
you
do
do
that
it,
bit? Can you just pretend you haven't heard that little bit? Just ignore that bit from Scarlett. Mine's a lot shorter than yours. We might need to boost it with yours. Keira Knightley and Carrie Coon star as journalists whose persistent reporting forced the Boston police force to City Hall to take notice of a series of murders of women in the early 60s. So
You did
obviously it's
that
a
really
true
well.
life story. I was very
I'm
slick.
glad you took that from me. That you did that so well.
Go on, you do yours then, quickly then.
Okay.
Rather than reviews. We can review the synopsis.
Reporter Loretta McLaughlin becomes the first person to connect a series of murders and break the story of the Boston Strangler. She and Jean Cole, who is Carrie Coon, challenge the sexism of the early 1960s to report on the city's most notorious serial killer.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I really enjoyed this, and I was looking forward to watching it because I do like a little bit of true-based crime.
Mhm.
There was already a film of the Boston Strangler.
Yes, this is I say
In
a
the
remake. but
60s?
it's- Yeah. This is
Which actually, do you know what? I've not seen the original film, but I didn't realise. I mean, the film was in the 60s as well, so it was only a few years after the actual Boston Strangler cases. It was early 60s. This was a late 60s film. So like it's in part of like friends and people I've chatted to from Boston. You know, it's part of like the kind of, I see the culture, the kind of subculture there that's kind of part of like this absolute horrific series of murders came around. But the film does a really good job of like opening up the multiple suspects in it and really telling, from what I can see, a really good explanation of what actually happened. And it's really about holding the law and everything to account. I really enjoyed the direction of it as well. It wasn't too fancy or anything, but it felt nice and period. Costumes and stuff were great. Strong cast as well. You're
Strong
not a massive
cast.
Keira Knightley fan.
I wasn't actually going to say anything about that.
I know,
but I was gonna say how well Carrie Coon did instead.
Yeah,
I
she
thought
was
she
really
was excellent. I mean, watching her for a little while, she started appearing. She's one of those. She is rising. Her star is rising. She's in lots of things.
Yeah, as soon as she appears, she's just got like a kind of gravitas that she brings to the screen, doesn't she? And which was really perfect for that part of the kind of more, because obviously sexism's a massive undercurrent.
I was going to say it's a big theme of this film. Really, is that you've got the sexism of these two women working in a man's world of journalism in Boston in the 60s, but you've also got the fact that it's all women that these crimes are happening to, and that the police are really screwing up the investigation. So it's the women that are suffering again on the basis of these men not doing their jobs. So it really is. For me, that was actually the main part of the film. I think
working
that was
in
the
a men's
main
world, and also challenging another men's world, which was the law kind of course. Yeah. And the fact that they put the two women together, and then but for maybe like not for the best of reasons, for the publicity around the case.
No, but they didn't pit
them.
But
it ended up working
really very well, and they didn't pit them against each other, which was what I was worried was going to happen initially, as we've all seen that one play out a few times as well. But actually, the strength of Carrie Coon's character in this really pushed it forward and kept it moving, didn't it? When
I thought Keira Knightley and Carrie Coon were good together. To
be honest
with you,
yeah,
because
and they're very different.
They were very different, but both. There was no need for it to be like extreme different. They're just different people who had different takes on the story, and one was the more experienced journalist. And I thought that came through like really well. I really enjoyed the performance, and then the pressures of the home life and things like that. I mean, you're right. That sexism was the major theme throughout it, and, from its criminal to its domestic.
Yeah, and also her and her husband's relationship. Like it really was layered throughout. Like the Boston Strangler is obviously the main plot of the show, but really like in terms of themes and in terms of what you come away from it with, it really does highlight the struggle of women at that time as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it. It got quite mixed reviews, which I found was quite interesting. I'm not really sure why, because I feel like it's a pretty solid, good watch, and it's quite dramatic. And do you know what's maybe missing? There's not as much. You don't feel as much peril in it. There's the moments in the phone calls and stuff. I didn't really feel like the lead characters were ever really in much peril, so that might have been the TV
doing something weird.
Okay, so for people listening on Spotify, we're now messing around with the telly as well. We're doing lots of visual stuff for you today.
A lot of tech fails today. Carry on.
What was your rating for it then? Do you know what? I'm going to change up the ratings on you. How about that? Rather than stars, I think we need a wee bit more. We thought we might change it. Yeah. I'm going to go for like an exam paper grading.
Okay.
And for this, I'm going to go for, I could have given it a B. I'm going to just give it a B- because I do think it's missing that bit of, not action as such, but a bit of peril, a bit of kind of moments where there was one moment where Keira Knightley nearly ended up in some real peril and she chose not to go in it wisely. Yeah. I guess because you don't want to kind of tear apart the truth of the story. But for me, I felt like there's maybe just a little bit of juice missing out of it. So I'll go for a B-.
Yeah, and I enjoyed her not doing that, so I'm going to go for a B. Because it just made you wouldn't do that. Like that's those moments and those stupid horror films where the girl walks into the black hole and unarmed with high heels on, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, don't do that.
Well, there you go then. Well, so on the Gerry and Scarlett show, if you want a slightly better review by like a minus or plus mark, it's the difference between peril and mild peril.
Yeah.
There you go. Right. Okay. Yeah. So talking about peril, there's plenty of peril in our next review.
Yes.
Which is
Nobody.
We can't agree on how to pronounce it.
Nobody would instill the idea that there is no body,
if you had
like a body that we've lost, and it's not about that. It's about the fact that his name is Nobody.
But if you put a comma in between it, it'd be no body as well, wouldn't it? So it's important what you do with your pauses.
That's another one. Yeah.
No, but I would say nobody. Anyway, from the writers of John Wick, and it's and you can really tell that. I mean, it could have been a John Wick film, really, couldn't it? And but starring Bob Odenkirk getting his action chops on the go.
Yes, he really
said action chops.
He's having his midlife crisis live on screen, isn't he?
Yeah, but good on him.
Yeah,
he's obviously. I'm just a big fan of Bob Odenkirk. He's one of those actors. I think he's probably in a kind of Tom Hanks category where you just like them. People seem to like them in the world.
And by the way, I didn't mean that in a bad way. I think that's an excellent midlife crisis that he's had.
That adds to the film.
But it is, and you really do feel that. I feel like that's
synopsis for this.
Yeah, sorry, synopsis. Okay. Hutch Mansell fails to defend himself or his family when two thieves break into his suburban home one night. The aftermath of the incident soon strikes a match to his long-simmering rage. In a barrage of fists, gunfight, and squealing tires, Hutch must now save his wife and son from a dangerous adversary and ensure that he will never be underestimated again. So,
and it's pronounced nobody.
Nobody. So it's starring Bob Odenkirk, as you've sort of suggested, and directed by Ilya Naishuller, who's a Russian director. And I think that really shows in sort of the action and the it's excellent baddies in this, isn't there? Like they spend as much time directing the baddies as they do the goodies, which is one of my biggest bugbears when you watch an action film and they haven't given the baddies any direction except to just be bad or be mean or be aggressive. And actually, like, I feel like this one is just like.
So I guess the thing that I liked in it is the action sequences are really, really good, but to say realistic, there's a bit of a push because they're extreme, they're enjoyable, but actually it's like he doesn't just come in and click into like John Wick mode. You know, John Wick's pretty slick and it's just incredible, whereas he takes quite a lot of hits.
Oh yeah.
It looks really sore.
Yeah,
he takes some really bad knocks. Yeah, there's some fantastic, and there's a lot from a directorial point of view, there's a lot of long shots, not like all in a one or whole scenes, but there's loads of long shots which really add to like the kind of tension and move the story along really quickly. And it's, I mean, look, it's extreme and it's silly as well. You know,
it's gruesome.
Having fun.
It is gruesome, and it. But the whole cast, the cast do a great job, and the main Russian gangster Alexei
Sale,
Sergeyov or something like that. He's excellent, so the director, I mentioned it was a Russian director. Interesting little piece of information. He's actually a musician. Okay. From the band Biting Elbows, which is a rather excellent name, an indie rock band from Moscow, and they opened for the Guns N' Roses and Placebo when they played in Moscow, so I think they're quite a big deal over in Russia. Right. And he started directing their videos, and they went viral because of the great action sequences and sort of live action stuff. And so then he went into film off the back of that, which isn't an uncommon way for film directors to start, is in music videos, but it's uncommon to start as a musician within the music video to then go on there. So
I think it's quite uncommon nowadays because music videos don't have the budgets that they used to have in the past. That's amazing. True. That's great. Yeah. Okay, so what rating would you go for that then?
I thought that in its genre was excellent. So I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of 5.
We changed the rating. Sorry.
A? Are we going to A+? We haven't really established what the...
No, just roll
so A+ is like utterly getting an Academy Award from us. Yeah. Right. Okay, so an A then.
An A++ would be more.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna say A-. Loads and loads of fun. Absolutely enjoyed it. Brilliant direction, great acting, great fun, thoroughly enjoyable, and lovely length as well. I mentioned just a wee
my goodness,
hour and a half job.
Hour and a half. Why are people not making hour and a half films nowadays? It was just such a delight to see that crop up. I was like, oh my God, brilliant.
It's good. It means you can watch it and go to bed.
Exactly. Yeah. Loved it. Yeah.
So talking about shorter form things then as well, we were watching Ted Lasso, which is on its mid-season
third series,
and then we're kind of midway through the season. Do you have a synopsis for Ted Lasso? We know, I mean, Ted Lasso has obviously been running for 3 years, but is an American style high school football coach. American football coach gets given the job as being an English now Premiership football team manager after a nasty divorce with a billionaire. His wife takes over the club and she tries to wreck it, but without looking like she's trying to wreck it too much. Ted's obviously got a good reputation, but he doesn't know anything about soccer. And it's all your usual American, British misunderstanding tropes are all been in there for years. And I'll be honest with you, like, it's good fun. People just love the character. It's a nice program. It's got nice jokes in it. It's funny. It's quite uplifting. And
I think also it's quite realistic in some terms. Like, the characters all have very complex relationships with each other and with their past.
Do you think it's quite realistic?
No, I just mean in terms of their relationships. Like, he's come out of a messy divorce, and she's come out of a messy divorce. The accountant guy has got a hilariously sweet home family life. Like, I just feel like actually they're covering mental health issues.
There's
really beautifully,
more so than previously. Because my worry coming into this season was like, where do you go with this character? Because it's so nice and it's so lovely, and there's like obstacles that you overcome, but there's nothing really that tumultuous. And they've already been promoted into the English Premiership. Yeah. So I was worried about where it was going to go. And the first episode, two. I was still concerned
Or
about
three,
where
yeah.
this first, where Ted Lasso is this lovely character goes, and he was also still a bit of a fish out of water, and you're starting to think after a few years he should have been learning. Like, I mean, he's done well, he's good now. How long can that go on for?
Yeah.
But they've really twisted it around, and they've done some great things. There's some really interesting themes and storylines in it. And the final episode was in Amsterdam, a bit of a twist kind of episode. And you know what? It's really, really won me over. They've done some interesting stuff, moved the characters around.
The last 2 eps in particular actually really took over.
So
Because
it's
at the
5 and
beginning
6,
it was
right?
just, the lack of adversity was really quite problematic. They did some funny bits. They had this massive star player, and they signed who was supposed to be like Zlatan.
It's a bit like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. There's a lot of like
lots of funny
to the real world, isn't there?
funny wee bits.
Nods.
It kind of felt like they were pushing a little bit more on the comedy at the start, and maybe that wasn't hitting quite so well because we'd had break from the characters, and I just felt there was nothing that they were coming up against. There was no real drama. Like, we were waiting, like I really wanted him to be threatened with being fired properly, like, or
you
something.
always felt like he was going to come through.
Like she was never going to fire him because they're best friends.
But
you know,
I don't
like,
know. I mean, it's been really interesting.
But it's been a lovely build, and it's just such a heartwarming show, isn't it?
And it's bright and colourful and fun, and the characters are great, and there's brilliant comedic performances all over the place. The lead, Jamie Tart, the football kind of prodigy, kind of star.
He's stepping up now.
He's stepping up now, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I do like, he always gets what I call a Northwest crapologue once a series, where he goes on about, you know, how his upbringing was pretty hard actually at the end of the day. So I always look out for his Northwest crapologue. Big shout out to Matt Ganley, who loves a Northwest crapologue himself. No, it was great. I really love it. Do you know what? I'm gonna quite happily go B+.
Big B+ for me
Big
as well.
B+, but could nudge. Second half
I
of the
can see
series
it
could
going
nudge
up.
more.
Up to an A. So next week, let's talk next week.
Yeah.
So next week we are looking at, you're going to talk about Mandalorian series 3.
Yeah.
And we're also going to watch.
Loving Mandalorian.
Yeah, we're also going to watch A Man Called Otto, which is the Tom Hanks offering, and Champions with Woody Harrelson, who we both love. So
I've got a feeling that's either going to be absolutely brilliant or really, really a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
Is he just?
It looks to me like a feel-good film.
Yeah,
so
I hope
hopefully
it is.
there will be lots of good feels.
And A Man Called Otto, I asked you like what that was about, and you're like, I don't know, it's just Tom Hanks. And
He always
know what it's
picks.
about?
He always picks interesting things.
Right. Okay. So we'll find out about that.
We'll find out. But I'm sure it's going to be excellent. So yeah, join us then. And we will.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Scarlett. There was a lunch.